I've done some different videos on loading blocks, and honestly, there's a lot of loading blocks out there. I've been really happy with a couple of the ones that I've used, but every time I've done a video, I will say I get multiple comments saying you've got to check out the lockdown loading block from EP Integrations. And everybody says, check out the lockdown. And I just honestly haven't really done it because I load one cartridge. I don't need a universal loading block. It just hasn't been on my radar. So it just hasn't really been something I've cared about doing. But as it turns out, the owner of this company, his name's Todd, is in a beta testing group on another product that I happen to be on. And him and I started talking. And he goes, hey, I see your videos and love what you do. But I don't know if I can do anything to help you test one of these. And I said, well, and I told him the deal. I said, look, I load one cartridge. I don't need a universal loading block. It's not that big a deal for me. I think it's a cool idea. And he goes, well, I'd love to send you one. Play with it, see what you think. He goes, I totally understand that you don't need a universal loading block, but I'd love to see what you think about it. So here's the deal. I've had it for about a month and a half, and I think that for people who need a universal loading block, this is actually really cool. So here's the deal. First of all, like I said, full disclosure, I didn't pay for this. He sent it out to me to play with. And I always try to be really honest with you guys about that kind of stuff. So there's the first thing. But when I got it, I wasn't quite sure. I said, well, you loosen up these screws and this little plate slides around and it's a little slippery in here and stuff like that. So I talked to him a little bit and said, look, walk me through. He goes, I'll watch my video. So I watched the video on the website, and it made a little more sense in terms of how he sort of structures it. But his standard loading block, which is this one here, this one holds 50. It'll do basically everything from 223 up to like 375 Shy-Tech. He claims there's a couple, depending on the bolt face, it could technically do a larger cartridge than 375 Shy-Tech. But as far as like a guarantee, it'll go 223 to 375 Shy-Tech. He also has a soon-to-be released 223 to 50 BMG plate, his big bore plate. It'll only have 25 holes on it, but that should be pretty cool for guys that need really big stuff and really small stuff. But let's just talk about the standard 50 count plate here. These they start out at about $100 for the silver. The black is, I don't know, 20 or 30 bucks more, something like that. But here's the deal. It is made up of 3 separate plates, so 1, 2, 3. The bottom and the top are held in line with the screw, and then the middle one floats. So you can see it just moves around. So you loosen it up a little bit. You're going to take some of your brass. You're going to stick it in here, and then you're going to take these 2 tabs and you pull it down. Right? So pull it towards here and then tighten down the screws. And now it is locked in place nice and tight. Now, if you really pull hard enough, you can make it like this one won't come out. That one technically comes out. So like this side's just a fraction tighter than this side over here. I don't really flip these things upside down, so I don't really care if they're completely held in place to the point where you can flip it upside down. But rest assured, they are really stable. In fact, if I put my tall powder tube on here, you can see only the powder funnel is moving around. The brass is really stable, and that's what matters to me. I don't want the brass wobbling around. Couple things to also understand about how this thing is made is that he uses these kind of rounded squares, if you will. I'm sure there's some geometric term for it, but it's rounded corner squares. And he does that so that no matter what diameter brass goes in, it is always going to make contact, at 1, 2, 3, 4 points of contact to keep it nice and stable. And I think that's a pretty cool feature. It's like one of those things that if you buy it and you don't really know, you don't really think about why it's geometrically laid out the way it is, but totally makes sense when you kind of talk to him or watch his video on his website about what it does. So I do Magnums right now. This is my Magnum case. Fits just fine. I can lock it down. It's nice and stable. When I go to put bullets on, I just back it off just a hair. Now I can pull everything in and out. Easy peasy. Couple things that I will say using it. I don't always load 50 rounds. Okay. In fact, a lot of times I do a weekly match. It's only 25 rounds. So there's a lot of times I only have 20, 25, 30 rounds at the most in here. And so there are times where if you were to load up on the left side, you just have to take a little more care to make sure that when you pull down on this tray, you keep it, square, because there's nothing on this side to hold it in place. So you can see how this is moving. So all you have to do is just, pull down on it, get it square, and lock it down, and now you're good to go. It's not that big a deal. It's just something to think about. The only thing that I ever found in usage is that when it's locked down, right? So when it's locked down like this and you're loading, there are times, look, I make mistakes. I've dropped powder, like double charged powder, and I need to pull this case, or maybe I need to reweigh the powder that is in one of these cases. And if it is locked down to the point where you can't pull it out, or it's really tight, you could conceivably kind of jerk on it and cause some powder to bounce out or something. So you do have to keep that in mind, where if you're going to pull it out, you kind of want to release the tension on it so that the brass comes out a little easier, or just set it so that it's just a hair off of gripping it tight, if that's the kind of loading that you do. So that's something that I found. Same thing happens when you go to seat your bullets. If I have bullets on top of all of these, I'm going to want to back this off. But you kind of get used to where the back off is. If I pull it tight and then just kind of give it just a little bit of a tap, you can pull it in and out just fine. In terms of getting it in and out, you don't want it to be too loose, obviously, because then you're going to be floppy like that. The other thing is, because you're dealing with a middle layer here, and it's not a all the way down case holder, if you pull out a piece of brass that has a larger rim on it or something like that, there's always the chance that it'll kind of not really catch, but sort of just want to kind of hop along the inside of that plate as it's coming up, since it's a layer on its own. And again, not that big a deal, but something to consider. Where I think the real value in these plates is for the person who does a huge range of reloading, right? Like 5-6 different cartridges or more, 223 bolt face, 308 bolt face, Magnum bolt face, 338 Lapua bolt face. Like every time you buy a different bolt face cartridge that's in kind of a family, you typically have to get a different loading block. So when I look at this, I say, well, this is $100 to $130 right now. It seems a little spendy, I admit, but a good loading block is going to run you, $50, $60, $70 for, like an anodized milled aluminum one. And if I have to buy 2 or 3 of those, suddenly I'm well over what this one costs, not to mention storage and everything else that goes along with it. So, I think for somebody like me, look, I'm being honest. If somebody like me, maybe it's not quite the same because I only load one cartridge, and that's just the way it is. But for multiple cartridges, I think it's fantastic. I think that there's a lot of value in it, and he's doing some really cool stuff. I don't even know if I'm supposed to talk about it, but he's actually going to be doing a red, white, and blue version. Like I said, he's got that big bore version that hasn't been announced yet. He's got a couple other tricks up his sleeves with these loading blocks. So if this one doesn't exactly float your boat for one reason or another, you just wait. I bet you one of his soon-to-come-out versions is going to, blow your mind. So in any event, it was nice of him to send it. I enjoy using it. I've had it for about a month and a half. It does work very well for what it is. And, again, it's a loading block. We're not reinventing the wheel, but I do think he has a very unique take on it, which for a lot of people is going to make sense. I will show you one other little feature with it, that when you have it locked down, so I'm just going to do this. When you have it locked down, there is a recess on this side that is formed, and then obviously a lip that comes out this side. It is made so that if you have multiples of these, you can actually lock them in together so that they form a little bit more stable platform if you want 50 or 100 or 150. And I think that's great because I know there are situations where people want to load a couple hundred rounds. Having a giant loading block that weighs 10 or 15 pounds isn't always practical, space-wise, whatever. This sort of gives you some modularity to it if that's the way that you want to approach it. So anyway, I appreciate you guys watching as always. Just first review of the year, I will say, and we'll go from there. So thanks again for watching. I appreciate it. You guys have a good one. Stay sporty like the wind.